Greetings. I'm Jess, and here we are with Tea with Jess. I have my fading ancient Writer's Digest mug that I dearly love for my tea today, where the writer is thinking tappita 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 tap, but in reality, on the typewriter, it just says tap, and the little logo says delusions of grandeur. Which I think we all have to have as writers, a little bit of imagination, about our the worlds that we're creating and ourselves as writers. So thank you for joining me. I'm excited to have with me today a friend and fellow writer, Mariah Fredericks. Her newest book out, you can see up in the corner, is Death of a Showman. It's the fourth in her Jane Prescott mystery series set in 1910s New York. Features a lady's maid who manages to dig into all kinds of fascinating mysteries and things happening in the background. And she's quite a good detective with an amazing voice. I just love the voice of this series. And in Death of a Showman, we get behind the scenes in theater. So it's a really great novel. I've read it, enjoyed it. I highly recommend Mariah's books. We're going to talk more about her books, bringing her on in just a second here. And here we go. Let's bring in Mariah.
Hey.
Hello.
Thank you so Hello. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. I just love clicking that button and then you appear like magic. So
my mug is from Los Alamos, actually. It has the
Okay.
little nuclear symbol
Oh, I
or
like
atomic
it.
symbol. Yeah.
Is there a story behind that mug? Did you visit there?
We have family in Albuquerque. And the first time that my husband took me, I said, I need to go to Los Alamos and see where Oppenheimer hung out. And he was like, that's not a normal request, but okay, we'll go.
Why not? Albuquerque's a fun city, and our older daughter was stationed there for a while, and so she got to know the restaurant scene. And oh, there's a waffles place. I hope it's a Waffleria. I hope it's still in business because if we're
Oh,
at Left Coast Crime next year, we have to go to Waffleria and
okay.
have. I mean, it's beyond amazing, these waffles. Anyway,
Okay.
but we're not here to talk about waffles. We're here to talk about you and your series. So tell us about Death of a Showman. Just, give us an overview. Tell us what this book is about. Tell us about the series.
Okay. Well, Jane is an intelligent young woman who has been working for the Grand families of New York since she was a very teenager, really. And she's currently employed by William and Louise Tyler, who have just gotten married. And Louise is a very wealthy young woman, but very shy and insecure. And she's trying to sort of find her way in New York society. And Jane, in some ways, knows this world better than Louise. And as the book opens, they're returning from Louise's sister Charlotte's glittering European wedding. She's found a Hungarian count and made herself a countess. And they've just come back to New York, and Jane is sort of reflecting on a boy she left behind, Leo Hirschfeld, who was a songwriter and who vowed that, one day Broadway would be one big Leo Hirschfeld production. Unfortunately, that was the only vow he was interested in making. So Jane broke it off with him before going to Europe. And she comes back to find out that, in fact, yes, Leo is opening his big, bold show. And he's gotten married to a really sexy chorus girl named Violet Tempest.
What a great name. It's so good.
That was one from the writing gods. I was like, yeah, that's it. And Jane doesn't care, and it wouldn't matter a bit to her, except Leo shows up on Louise's doorstep and asks her to invest in the show. and Louise does, because she is starstruck with the theater. The show has another producer, Sidney Warburton, who's a abusive, horrible type, that of the kind that we're always seeing in Hollywood, sort of the Weinsteins and the Rubens, the bowl throwers and the screamers. Not surprisingly, the whole cast goes out to dinner one night and he ends up murdered on the toilet. So in order to save Jane's investment, Louise's investment, Jane has to find out who murdered him.
And what a way to go. Pardon the really bad pun. Oh my goodness. You must have had so much fun writing this. Tell me, you mentioned the writing gods, and I mentioned your voice. How well, I know you've worked at it, but you've had to have, but how naturally does the voice come to you now? Do you hear Jane's voice in your head when you're not writing, or?
Yeah. I mean, you know that phrase, something lives in your head rent free. Jane and all of these people live in my head rent free. For a very, I think, I'm sure your characters do for you as well.
They do, yeah.
So in some ways, getting started, you sort of don't, I'm sorry, I'm new to AirPods, so I'm going to keep adjusting. So, you have these scenes, and every book starts off and you have certain scenes sort of pre-written in your head. Several of Jane's arguments with Leo, like they were just there to start with. And part of the pleasure with this was going back to Leo, because I had expected to take a break from him for a book. We were going to stay in Europe for the year is 1914.
Right.
But we came back to New York instead. And, he's just a sort of fabulously, outrageously arrogant, optimistic character about what he can achieve and what he can get away with, and so he's a real pleasure to write.
He's very self-possessed. He's very self-confident. Yes. Mm-hmm. And brash is a great word. Brash about sharing it with the world. Here I am. Yes. He's kind of like my cat Sammy, like announcing himself. I'm here. I thank you all for waiting for me.
Yes. But of course you did.
Because of course, what else would you do?
Right.
Oh my goodness. Well, your books are much beloved by readers, and also we should talk about the fact that they're much beloved by your peers, because this book is nominated for an Edgar. You've been nominated. I'm sorry, the book before it. Yes, I'm off by 1 year. But this one could well be too, and that would make 4.
I was right. I got all hopeful.
Yeah, like I'm psychic. I can see it. No, well, why not? I mean, this is your 3rd nomination. So tell us about that process and the books that have been nominated and what that's like.
Well, with Crunch, the first book that got nominated was 2007. It was Crunch Time, and at that time I was still writing young adult novels. And Crunch Time is based on a true story, something that happened when I was in high school. 4 kids are preparing to take the SATs. It's told in each of their voices. One of them cheats, and you have to figure out who did it. Mm. And I guess it would have been around Edgar Allan Poe's birthday, because that's when they announced them in December, and I had just given birth to my son, and that sort of first 2 months where you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing, is baby, and I got an email saying, you've been nominated for an Edgar. I didn't even know what an Edgar was.
Oh.
I had no idea I had written a mystery, but the thought that I got nominated for my very first thing. At the time, it was sort of up to my waist in, mommydom. So that was really a wonderful thing, and I mean, that was like just joy to be nominated. And my sister looked after my son, and we went to the big party, and I sat behind Stephen King,
Oh my gosh.
and yeah, and I was like, they're like, "Oh, we're sorry you didn't win." I'm like, "Are you kidding? Like, really?"
I'm okay.
I could care. Right, I could care less. I didn't expect it. But I really fell in love with the mystery community then. They have an enormous sense of humor about themselves, which not every fiction genre has. And I think it's because a lot of mystery writers have done other things, like we've been journalists, we've been scientists, doctors, stay-at-home parents. I think there's a maturity and a self-awareness, I think, about mystery writers, a generosity that life is hard, you help each other. So I was like, how do I get invited back to this party? And I was like, I better write another mystery.
That's right.
Which I did, which did not get nominated, to my shock. I was like, but wait, it's supposed to just work that way. But then I wrote an adult mystery, the first Jane Prescott, The Death of No Importance. And I was completely thrilled out of my mind when it got nominated. And again, like, they're like, "Oh, we're sorry you didn't win." I was like, I lost to Sajana Massey. Like, that's fair call.
Yeah.
And and this year, I mean, it's really thrilling to be nominated for the series. To be nominated twice is really gratifying. I made the mistake of reading the other books in the category, so I'm not feeling real cocky. But there's some like annoyingly great books in
and
this
yours
category.
is annoyingly great too. So
thank you.
yeah, that's
so
exciting.
I think it'll be fun on Thursday.
I think so. Yeah, it'll be fun no matter what. I'm rooting for you. I adore the category that you're nominated in. Um, the Mary Higgins Clark category. Yeah. So many good novels, and stories overall through the Edgars. So it's really neat to see the high level of quality that our industry puts out for stories and novels and whatnot.
Yeah, and then you also think about like books that aren't nominated, and you're like, all those incredible stories.
Right. Yeah. So many good books.
I think a lot of people are doing amazing work right now.
Yeah.
Like you.
Oh, well, thank you. I'll accept that. I'll take that as a high compliment.
Yeah.
I admire your books so much. And you seem like you're having so much fun writing them. Tell us about what you're writing now. What's next?
Well, I'm working on Jane 5. At the end of Jane 4, William and Louise get all excited, and they decide to send Jane to night school. They feel she is really intelligent. She needs more education. So for reasons I don't want to reveal, Louise doesn't. Yeah, Louise doesn't need her quite so much in the next book. So she goes to work for William, who is really an old friend in some ways, and in his new law practice. And William is a very privileged young man who means very well, but he doesn't know a lot about life. He's been very sheltered his whole life. So they get involved with investigating the death of Michael Bihn's father, who died in an industrial accident. However, all of this is, it's a turning point book in the series, so I want to take my time with it. Right. And so next year, I have a book coming out, a standalone, a true crime novel based on the Wimberg kidnapping. that recounts the kidnapping from the point of view of the baby's nanny, Betty Gow, who was a
Wow.
28-year-old Scotswoman who was in the country, I think, 3 years when it happened. She was very pretty. She had a cute boyfriend, and the tabloids ate her alive. She came on, she was the last person to see the baby. And she was she was the immediate suspect because the Lindberghs, when the baby was kidnapped, the Lindberghs were staying in a house they were having built, and it wasn't quite finished yet. So they would spend weekends there. But by Monday, they had always returned to Anne's parents' house in Englewood, New Jersey. But because the baby was sick and Anne was sick, they stayed on to Tuesday. And Tuesday morning, they called Betty and they said, would you come help us? She didn't work on weekends when they were at this house. They said, come please help us. So she changed her plans. And the question has always been, how did the kidnappers know that the family were at the country house, not on a weekend? Who told them? And as the key person in the household who changed her plans, who did Betty tell that she was going? So,
oh, that's fascinating.
It's very, I can't, it's sort of being done a little bit in Murder on the Orient Express, where of course the backstory is a famous kidnapping and all the suspicion that fell on the household. But when I started researching, I was like, wait, how has this never been done? This is crazy. Yeah. But I'm going to do it. So I'm glad it's never been done.
Yes, beautifully. So what draws you to historical settings? So you have the historical series, you have this historical standalone, but correct me if I'm wrong, your young adults are all contemporary, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to pivot, if you will, into history as a source for your fiction?
That was again sort of the writing gods, where Jane just popped into my head one day with the lines, I will tell it, and I will tell it badly. And over time, she just kept coming back to me until I started having this image of a maid who nobody noticed, who knew the truth about like a famous crime of the century. And now, decades after the wrong person had been convicted, she was going to reveal the truth. And I love history and I majored in history.
Right.
But I never thought, I was nervous I didn't have the world building skills to do like straight up historical, because with YA contemporary, it's a very punchy voice. It's very reactive and, opinionated and emotional. And, I love doing it, but they don't stop and like describe their friends' clothing in a precise, detailed way. It's more like how that clothing makes them feel. Like, oh, she always looks so amazing. I can't stand it. It is pale chartreuse and 4 buttons down the front. No. So I really had to sort of retrain my writing skills. I had to learn a whole new way of doing things.
So when you had that first line, I will tell it and I will tell it badly, you didn't know right off the bat that this was the voice of it's her voice, contemporary, but you didn't know that the story she was going to tell would end up being going back into her life. That took some time.
Yeah, but a few things gave me the clue. I mean, her tone was pretty formal.
Yeah, that's a formal sentence.
Yeah, it's very declarative and also sort of like, and I will tell it badly. And there was an element of secrecy to it that immediately made you think, well, am I going to keep a secret? that led me to murder. I'd always wanted to get back to mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get back to that party.
To the party, yeah.
Right. Want to sit behind Stephen King again.
Sure. Sit next to him. Why not?
Right. Stephen. And
it's been a little while since we've seen each other. Let's catch up.
Right. You wouldn't have seen me, but the back of your head is quite impressive.
Big brain in that man.
Big brain. And so what was I saying? So how do there's something about, if I'm going to write about murder, I like the idea of doing it historically, because I guess it gives, murder is a wonderful lens to look at American history through. Would you agree with that?
I would, yeah, definitely.
You know, who is frightened of who is enraged at who views who as a threat.
Who has the means to get away with whatever or think they can. Yeah.
Right. So I think that was interesting, and I've always enjoyed historical as a genre, that there's a certain elegance to the prose, a certain wit often that I think I don't know, it's an escape from the sort of more cynical, blah, narcissistic voice I find I can fall into when I write contemporary adult stuff. It tends to be, apathy creeps in when I write contemporary adult, whereas Jane is, one of the things I really love about her and the era of the 1910s, it's very optimistic. It's very dynamic. And I really enjoy that.
And she's very sincere. There's definitely wit to her voice, which I very much like. I chuckle at some of her, like wry observations, especially in the theater. It's just wonderful.
I let her go wild.
But she's also very earnest,
Yes. Yeah. She really, I forget who I was telling this. I used to write very cynical characters, or I'm drawn to very cynical characters. And Jane is not cynical. She's wry, but she has not only enormous affection for everybody, but enormous hope.
Yeah.
I remember the moment in writing when that quality came through in the very first book, when she first meets Louise, before Louise is married, and Louise is like, I'm horrible and shy and ugly, and you really shouldn't be my lady's maid because I'm hopeless. Like, you'll be out, like, you can't send me anywhere. And Jane sort of takes a step back. She's like, okay, this is actually going to be a challenge. This young woman has no self-esteem, and her looks are maybe a challenge too. And she decides, like, I'm on her side. I'm going to do it. We're going to get through this together. I'm out of a job. She's looking for a husband. Like, let's do it. And she picks up the brush. She's like, let's have this hair be the envy of every single New York matron. And that was sort of when that character and that quality in her was born.
Yeah, that's lovely. I love that. Well, on that note, anything else you'd like to share with folks about your books? I have your website up, so folks can go to your website and learn more, right? Maybe read some sample chapters.
Yep. If they have questions, there's a way to contact me through the website.
Mm-hmm. And you're on Facebook. What's your Facebook handle?
I believe it should be Mariah Fredericks and Mariah Fredericks Books.
Yeah, pretty easy to find.
Yeah, I am. I'm around Twitter, Mariah Frederick.
Yeah, you're great on Twitter, actually.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I was just fulminating about the Oscars, so.
Yes, I saw. I didn't watch the Oscars this year. We did watch Nomadland. I thought that was great. And The Sound of Metal was really, really good. I highly recommend that.
Okay. we watched Ma Rainey like 2 hours before the broadcast, and I was like, I mean, I was totally pro Chadwick Boseman winning anyway, but
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is not an honorary award. This is like, you just destroyed everybody in the category award. But I guess the Academy disagreed, so there you go.
They should have asked. Why didn't they ask? Anyway, well, thank you for joining me for Tea with Jess.
Oh, really? It's always a pleasure, and thank you so much.
Yes. Till next time. So everyone, next week I'll be chatting at you about something. I don't know what, but I'll figure it out. I've always got something to say. I'm like my cat Sammy. I always have something to say. And in the meantime, life is hard, as Nana would say. So have tea. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.
Bye.